Dragon Ball Final Bout was developed and released by Bandai in 1997, and there isn't much to know about the development process. Doesn't matter anyway, they released the game as shitty as it was, and the American re-release won't make up for it, because it doesn't fix anything. Dragon Ball Final Bout begins like any typical video game. First you see the logo of the Sooo developer, and then you see an animated intro that is about the same quality as the anime. It probably only serves to showcase the first characters you will play as, so there is no context to anything here. I was a bit confused back when the game came out because of Bout and Gohan, and especially because of the GT characters. Dragon Ball Z was still in the middle of the Android saga on German television, and Dragon Ball GT started in Japan back at the time. You get to see everyone from the starting roster here, and yes, while there are still mainly Dragon Ball GT characters, there are also some from Dragon Ball Z. To be honest, the total number of characters in the game is way too small, especially for a Dragon Ball game. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's start at a point where everything is still alright. The intro is good, and the biggest fight, composed by Kenji Yamamoto, who did by the way the entire soundtrack, and performed by Hironobu Kageyama, is also a good song. The graphics are passable for a PlayStation 1 game with 3D models. At least the character models are pretty detailed and the animations are serviceable. The key-based attacks, and especially the auras on the other hand, don't look so good. Most of those have been animated in 2D, but for the auras they decided to make them 3D. Just like this. Yikes. The soundtrack is okay, every character has his own song and battle stage. There is Hikari no Willpower playing for Trunks from Dragon Ball Z, but it is just an instrumental. I can't say much about the other songs other than the Super Saiyans get variations from the base form tracks. The playable characters start off with Adult and Small Goku, Trunks and Pan, which are all from Dragon Ball GT, then Gohan from the end of the Buu saga, Kid Buu, Cell, Frieza, Piccolo and Super Saiyan Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z. By playing against computer, players can unlock Super Saiyan Vegito and under very special circumstances Super Saiyan 4 Goku. The voice acting in the game is Japanese only, and only the American re-release has a very improvised English dub before and after each fight, but in the battle they still use the Japanese voices. Every 2D fighting game usually controls the same in its basics. You have buttons to kick, to punch, and in some cases to block. Since this is a Dragon Ball game, there are also inputs for key attacks and flying, which is okay. But Dragon Ball Final Bout does not have a combo system. Every input leads to only a single punch, kick or key ball. Hitting the buttons multiple times doesn't do anything, and there is an input lag on top of every action. There probably is a dumb reason for it. The game is giving the player time to make inputs for certain combos, because that's the only way to do more than single attacks, which brings down the gameplay to an absolute crawl. A normal combo system seemed to be asked too much. That control scheme feels awfully familiar. Oh, I know! GTA! Cheat codes! You input something and BAM! Something happens. Like a QTE with invisible inputs. Dragon Ball Final Bout? Stupid name. How about Dragon Ball Cheat Code Battle? Every combo or special attack requires a combination of button inputs before the character even starts moving. And adding to that, there are two mechanics that I always disable for very good reasons. Meteor is basically those insanely fast combos, you know, from the TV show, which make it look pretty badass. To do them, you press R2 in the direction of your opponent, and if you hit him, you gotta mash the triangle and circle or square buttons to perform combos. That way you can force a lot of combos down their throat, but your opponent can counter by pressing the same buttons faster than you. A nice mechanic, but it requires way too much button mashing and the harder CPUs are way too good at it. Especially because they know how to end a meteor chain with a cinematic Kamehameha, which you cannot block and will no doubt cause you to flip out. And those cinematics are called Demo. If Demo is enabled, you can launch Kamehamehas in similar attacks from a certain distance in a cutscene, which looks immediately flashy, but they can be countered or blocked by your opponent to decrease the damage. If the opponent decides to counter, there is going to be a beam struggle, which you can only win by mashing the triangle button for dear life. But one of the two has to get a big lead in order to win. Harder CPUs are a lot better here as well, if not invincible. While we are at harder CPUs, those guys can reset their melee combos and start them from the beginning while still hurting you. And you can't do anything but watch once they got you until they finally decided you've had enough. There is no explanation, nowhere. Not in the game or in the manual, where you can find the combos of the starting characters. So you better read the damn thing or look them up on the internet. And you will find out that most of the basic combos work on every character, and the game quickly becomes some sort of strategy game with the input lag and slow movement. And no worries about fighting harder CPUs. They barely block and often do combos that won't hit you. Sometimes the broken hitboxes work in your favor too. Take my advice, disable Meteor and Demo in the options menu, then you will have a lot less to worry about. Look up a combo list on the internet and then you can play relatively carefree. And now that the unfair bullshit is out of the way, you will find other things that can annoy you. You have a key bar that decreases whenever you use keyballs and super moves. It does regenerate by itself over time, but it is slow, so you sometimes gotta scream and recharge your key. Without Demo enabled, the super moves only go up and down by 45 degrees. Exceptions are those self-explosions by Vegeta and Boo, as well as Cell's Screw You barrier. And you also have to watch your key usage, cause otherwise you will find yourself in a state of faintness, or in Goku's case a state of hunger, until your key regenerated back into the visible parts of your gauge. This game also has blocking, which doesn't negate the damage entirely, but at least decreases it by a decent amount. Even then, getting hit on the ground is no matter. In the air, however, it is a nightmare. If you get hit in the air without blocking, you will fly a little after each hit and you are open for more attacks. If your opponent is clever enough, you can be held in a long chain of keyballs and there is no way out other than your opponent stopping to attack because he ran out of juice at some point. Of course, you can do the same to your opponent, but it is still a bad thing that it is even possible. Adding to that, there is a problem with hitboxes. There are some shorties and tall guys, of course. Cell, for example, can't really hit the small guys by simply being too tall. Some combos hit really well, others let your opponent stand on top of it or just go around him. And then there are moves that require that your target is standing absolutely still until the attack starts someday. And once you've fought through all the fighters, you will come to the final boss, Baby Vegeta, in his giant monkey form. Why is that in the script? That guy is huge and his hitbox is broken accordingly. You can barely hit him with melee attacks because he's either standing on top of them or because only one strike of them really hit. He also has combos of his own, and those not only make him move around way too much, but he doesn't even hit all that much. Only his super moves are rather dangerous and he doesn't really use that much ki on them. Super Baby should be the last enemy, but if you were fast enough and didn't lose too many HP with harder CPUs enabled, you will fight Super Saiyan 4 Goku. He is pretty strong, his moveset is the same as every other adult Goku's, but on steroids. They are fast, long and powerful, and only his Kamehamehas take long to use. Fighting your way to him can be exhausting and frustrating. It would have been cool to have a save feature for this, but that doesn't exist. And what's worse, that's better, there are cheat codes to get every playable character in the game without the need to unlock them normally. Usually I would have said that I did it the honorable way, but for this game the sentence transforms into I have wasted a lot of time. There isn't much in terms of multiplayer either. A normal 2-player mode, training mode where the second player can play too, and the tournament mode for 8 players. And lastly there's a build-up mode. Here you can choose one character that you can train, but you need to unlock the other characters if you want to use those. You do this by fighting your way through a number of boxes until you fought every playable character and every next opponent is stronger than the last. Therefore, you require intense training to stand a chance on later fights. Your character earns experience points for each hit on the opponent, and level ups level you up, selectively. Here's how it works. So you want your punches to actually pack a wall up. You gotta hit your opponent with punches for that. How often? No idea, but it has to be quite a lot. I think I'm not over exaggerating when I say at least 100 hits would be required for a decent level up. And also only for your punch. But you also want other things to be powerful, like kicks, key attacks, super moves, combos, and maybe even your key regeneration. So guess what? You gotta repeat the same process with every single attack, and only that one attack for each fight. The best method is to find an opponent where your attacks don't really make any damage at all, and grind him down by spamming one attack. This is the entire mode till the very end. A boring and slow fest of tiring monotony. Every single attack has to be powered up that way, and most if not all combos don't get stronger by making your basic punches and kicks strong. And once the opponent gets higher defense, the whole cycle starts anew. Only with more HP to grind down. And what do you have to show for it when you finished it? A ridiculously powerful character which you wasted at least 100 hours on, and you can only use him to fight the memory card battle against other build-up characters. The only positive thing about build-up mode is that you gain experience points regardless if you win or lose the fight.
Yeah, it seems that you've improved.
You still waste hours upon hours just to redo the same things over and over. It's even more tedious than unlocking decent cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories, and that's not easy to accomplish. Let's just take a second to talk about the re-release. It is still the same game with only minor differences. There is the aforementioned English dialogue before and after each fight.
Even if there is no hope, why don't you worry about yourself?
It is faster thanks to the higher frame rate compared to the PAL version, and there were some tweaks in the build-up mode. And by tweaks I mean that every character has one attack that is really strong, and that's it. It is still a burning pile of garbage. I couldn't even recommend this game to the most hardcore of Dragon Ball fans. This should be the last 3D Dragon Ball game Bandai made until the Budokai series started on PS2. And from there we got solid games. Still a bit on the mediocre side, but nowhere near as bad as Final Bout. I still invested a lot of time into this game as a kid. I don't even know anymore what kept me playing. I mean, now it was making the review. Back then I may just have played the game for the sake of playing something different. I always loved video games, even when my time back then was limited. Or maybe even because of it. It was a shining light in my day. I still invested an incredible amount of time into this game and I regret it, but probably not as much as I should. One thing that still made me like this game over time was that Vegito doesn't simply use a Kamehameha in this game, but a final Kamehameha. This attack has not only never been in the anime or manga until Dragon Ball Super came around, but it has also been reused in a few video games. One attack that makes Vegito even more special than he already was. Also, you can play a character as a wireframe if you press the right buttons while choosing him. Of course there are some glitches too, but most of them are purely graphical and harmless, except one hitbox glitch with Pan. There are videos on the internet how to perform them, if they don't happen by complete fucking accident, because this game isn't all that stable by itself. You know what else kept me busy despite being impossible to finish? The next PS1 game. But the Spyro Reignited trilogy will take a big amount of my time hostage before I even get to that one. Gosh, I love Spyro. So, yeah, this is my review of Dragon Ball Final Bout. I know it's a bad game, a game nobody should know, nobody should play. And but I wanted to talk about this game and Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories and the next PlayStation 1 game because those are my guilty pleasures, and The next game isn't actually that bad, just everyone in Europe, aside the UK, were kinda screwed. Hope you enjoyed this video and have a nice day.